Good morning, Lothar here. Season has started. Again, apologies for the late sort of processing of my videos. I've actually been quite busy sort of trying to sort out what's going on this year. I may be hiking this year again. Each year I face the same dilemma. Can I fit a hike in? That's what I'm going to try and do. But season has started. It's a bit slow, but hikers are moving up trails gradually. The Angel Network has this year exploded for all the good reasons in terms of offering lifts, offering support. I think they're actually going to be treading on each other's toes, actually, which is a good thing, don't we? I think the support is fantastic. So please, so thank you to all the angels for doing that. People sometimes call me an angel. I'm not actually a trail angel. I tend to sort of hang around campsites where I'm actually training myself. And basically, if a hiker needs a repair or something, or a spare or something, I normally do that. I'm not really geared up for doing food and things like that, so I leave that to the people who know how to do it better, and they're the real angels out there. So hopefully I will be hiking and seeing them as well. But what would I be doing right now? Well, obviously I'd be printing my permit within 3 weeks before my start date. Every year someone messes it up. I don't know how many warnings people give, but they still mess it up. The start, it's actually looking quite hot. Check Hauser Creek at Cleef with the people there. That's probably your first real test, getting to Lake Morena. It's your first real taste of the desert, and it's actually a good thing because it's actually from the start. It's good that that particular section is at the start, because it's kind of almost like a very quick reminder. Whoa, this is the desert, and it makes sure you sort of you're not lured into a full sense of security. You're hit with something quite challenging from day one, and don't let it catch you out. Fine. Lake Morena. You have a campsite there and a PCT area. Please stay in the PCT area. Obviously use the angels or just take the support from the angels, but I think the rangers are looking to encourage hikers to camp in the PCT area. Pay what is it, $5 or $7 or whatever it is. I think they're a bit nervous now of angels constantly asking for hikers or suggesting hikers share their sites, partly because it's just over the season. The wear and tear on the small sites really shows, and I think that's the reason why the PCT area is so much bigger. So you can spread out so that any sort of load on the campground and the grass and things like that and the foliage is minimized. So please stay in the PCT area. Boulder Oaks, they've got a small PCT area there and a great camp post there. I think you have to pay $5 or $7. I can't remember, $5 or $7 there. So the thing is, have some cash on you from the start. Some small denominations. Now, as you head up, there's an option to go off trail to Sibbett's Flats. Now, that's $20 for a site. Now, you can share on those, and it's actually quite a spread out area. So, again, they're not so worried about the damage or anything like that. So I think you can share up to 8 people there. It's different at Lake Morena. You'll see what I mean when you get there, that it's almost this major site. But if you imagine over the season, the wear and tear can be quite heavy. So they're trying to minimize it. And that's why they set up the PCT area. Then further up, you've got Mount Laguna. Now, those campgrounds, the first campground, Burnt Rancheria, doesn't open. I think I've heard now, I think it's the 1st of May now, I think. So don't necessarily count on that campground. But the next one after Mount Laguna, the Laguna campground, that is, I think, 32 this year, again, but you can share. And the camp hosts there are very aware, and they'll spread you out and direct you to different sites depending on what the circumstances are. Again, the setup is very good and well established. Rule is, bring some cash. Right, what else? Well, I drove within sight of San Jacinto. Still snow there, so yep, I think you can bank on snow from the early starters. So I think it would be a reasonably safe bet to send your snow gear to Paradise Valley Cafe, or send it to Idlewild Post Office and hitch in from Paradise Valley Cafe, and then hitch back to Paradise Valley Cafe with your snow gear. You need it for Apache Peak, or you will need it for Apache Peak on San Jacinto. But to get the very, very latest, check out the San Jacinto Trail Report, San Jacques Jean. That's basically the Bible for that kind of a terrain, that area. But it's looking as though there's going to be some residual snow there for quite some time. So keep that in mind. Now, as you head up trail, you've got, I think the next thing I was going to talk about was the Sierra. So let's talk about mile 704, I think it's Kennedy Meadows South. Now that is normally seen by most people as the entrance to the Sierra. That's where people send their gear in. If you're sending parcels in there, send them to, I think either Grumpy Bears or General Store. I think Grumpy Bears offers it for free. And pack it out with some resupplies, and then use the local stores to finalise. Because it's kind of like what I would call an island resort, you're totally dependent on what's there. Now, they normally do a very good job, but you can't guarantee you're going to get everything you want. So I tend to sort of make sure I've got what I want and send it in. And the way I do that is, as I'm heading up trail before Candy Meadows, there's a town called Tehachapi. That's about mile 510 or 520, I think it is. And what I do is I actually plan to do a zero at Tehachapi. And that is where I take stock of everything I'm going to do going into the Sierra and what I'm going to send into Candy Meadows South. So Tehachapi for me is a major staging post, as is Candy Meadows South. So at Candy Meadows South, there are two areas. There's the general store area where you basically get clapped in as hikers arrive into Candy Meadows. So there's a balcony, and hikers, so the other hikers clap you into the, it's sort of cheering you on, welcoming you. And at the general store, they've got basic resupply and food. And there is the support of basically 2-foot adventures. They have a roving trailer. So whilst they're based out of Julian, they also have a roving trading trailer as well. They have full permits to do that. And basically that allows you to get food at the general store and also get some extra gear and resupply from the 2-foot adventures team. Now, the other side of town is basically, it's a small shuttle ride. And there's a place called Grumpy Bears. Now, Grumpy Bears is kind of a bigger restauranty kind of bar place. They accept parcels, and for the last few years, there's been a store called Triple Crown Outfitters, which is a resupply store. That has now been sold by the existing owner. I would say it's a store. It wasn't a store. It was a lorry container. I think the permits probably ran out on that one. So basically, Grumpy Bears took it over, and I think what's happened is that because they've got a well-established site, then they can actually open it up as a store and trade. Whereas I think the previous owner was being limited by their permits because they didn't have a permanent structure there. Now, I think Grumpy Bears is going to do a better job of it in terms of just making it a more permanent structure. Hopefully, we'll see. But they have camping areas. Actually, both sites, both General Store and Candy Meadows, has camping areas. And you can get food and resupply at both locations. I've stayed at both locations. I like both locations. So there's no harm in visiting them both. As I said, there's a shuttle going back and forth every couple of hours between them. So if you're going to stay there. You've got two choices. So now, where do you pick up your bear can? Now, I normally send my bear can into Candy Meadows South. You can rent them. Be careful of the deposit scheme. That historically has been questionable in the past, but I think under the new ownership of Grumpy Bears, hopefully that will get cleaned up. That will never ever again be in doubt. We'll see. I think they normally they'll do a better job. So the other place that people think about bear cans is Lone Pine. Now, the argument for Lone Pine is it's 50-50 really, is that it's a further 50 miles north of Candy Meadows, so you don't have to carry a bear can for another 50 miles. But and that's where the 40-50 miles, then the requirement for bear cans starts. Some people then hike into Candy Meadows, then hike out and go to the turnoff to Lone Pine, and then go out of the Sierra down to the town Lone Pine, then pick up their bear can and their resupply. The Lone Pine argument, as by using that as a base for pickup, is doesn't convince me. I will always use Candy Meadows South and take the extra 50 miles or 40-50 miles of carrying a bear can to save me having to exit the Sierra early just to get a bear can and do resupply. So my resupply strategy is as follows. For Candy Meadows, I plan enough food to get me to go, but where I can go up Whitney. I go up and over Forester Pass and exit at Kearsarge Pass. That gives me an entrance to Independent, the town of Independence, and there's normally you hike out of Kearsarge Pass to a place called Onion Valley and then hitch into Independence or hitch down to Independence. It's a very small town, but you can resupply there, and I sometimes send a parcel to the post office at Independence, and occasionally I might even book a hotel and stay overnight. Some hikers also go down to the road and actually hitch or catch the bus to Bishop, which is probably a much more hiker established town, and it's actually bigger. Spend maybe a couple of days in Bishop and then hitch back to Independence and go back into Kearsarge Pass. Now, so I base myself out at Kearsarge, and then I could get back into the Sierra and then hike on. And my next stop after Kearsarge is Mammoth Lakes. Now, there is a site called Vermilion Valley Resort, VVR. Now, that's a local remote site, which is a resort, it's a full resort. Very hiker friendly, but very hiker expensive because they have to ship everything in. And that's part of the reason why because Mammoth Lakes is one extra day further on, and it's a massive town and has everything you want, I tend to focus on going for Mammoth Lakes and bypassing VVR. That's only my personal choice. So from Kearsarge Pass, I then aim to get to Mammoth Lakes. And then after Mammoth Lakes, I would probably do a zero Mammoth. Multiple gear stores there, food, restaurants, superstores. It's good. After Mammoth Lakes, I go to obviously through Yosemite, and at Ptolemy Meadows, you've got a small store there, and I think that was open last year. And I don't think there's any reason why it shouldn't open this year. Again, that's where you can get some basic resupply. You can actually send a box there as well. And then after that, you hike on to Sonora Pass and then hitch down to a place called Kennedy Meadows North. Not Kennedy Meadows, there are two, just bear in mind. And that's a resort. I sometimes send a box there and sometimes resupply there. That is a bit expensive as well because it's a remote resort and they have to bus everything in. But Kennedy Meadows North is a nice place. Now, word of warning. This is where people think, oh, I've left the Sierra. I don't need my snow gear anymore. Be very careful there. It is very, very possible you'll experience snow at Sonora Pass, beyond Sonora Pass, up to Echo Summit at South Lake Tahoe, and beyond there as well. This is quite possible. So don't be tempted to necessarily send your snow gear too early. The thing about when you're hiking on the PCT, what can happen is you won't see snow for days on end. You'll turn a corner, and there, because it's in shade, there would be could be quite a dangerous snowbank. And there are a couple of places on the trail which are well known to hikers, certainly people who've hiked the trail before, where you need snow gear for that, even if you have to carry it for a couple of days, because there are some places which are highly questionable, and each year you see hikers taking risks that I personally would not take on snow and ice because they've given up their snow gear too early. You will sometimes hear people posting online, "Oh, I got through. I didn't use my snow gear once." Yeah, there are statistics waiting to happen. At some point, people will have slides. You can be the smartest, most perfectly experienced mountaineer and still have slides. It's basically the terrain that decides, the conditions at the time, decide whether a slide develops and whether or not you need a rest. You can be the best mountaineer in the world. And when you hear people saying, "Oh, I went over this section," or which any normal person would say you need snow gear. "Oh, I did it with trekking poles." Don't need trekking poles. Or I did it with just spikes. Another phrase that certainly doesn't apply to the Sierra. It's just spikes. Just spikes. If the terrain is relatively flat, or the paths are so sort of graded in such a way that if you do slide, you're not going to go very far, then, certainly like San Jacinto, you'll sometimes hear Saint-Jacques Jean saying, just spikes are fine, because he hikes the very steps we hike. So if he says it, you can trust it on the Saint-Jacques Jean, San Jacinto area. But the whole Sierra, no, you don't do just spikes through the Sierra. If you need spikes going through the Sierra, you very well need an arrest tool as well. Ice axes. Now, sometimes you hear people talking about using a whippet. Now, whippet is basically a trekking pole with an ice axe head on. I have both. I have four ice axes of different sizes for different conditions or different situations, and I have actually have two whippets now over the years. Now, the first generation, and the second whippets, I would probably use in the very low snow areas where you're just using trekking poles to keep your balance. But occasionally, if you did have a slide and you just want to have an arrest tool like that to stop a slide developing into anything serious, then a whippet can have its uses. So don't dismiss them. But most of the time, I'd say, certainly this year, I think it looks as though an ice axe is going to be being used necessary for quite some sections. Unless there's a massive melt. It's not a heavy snow year, but I think my experience is the snow certainly does linger, certainly on the north side of passes, quite a long time. And the other thing that you keep in mind is when you're walking across snow and ice, the time of day makes a huge difference. So if you're going across snow and ice first thing in the morning, guess what? It's going to be rock hard. And in the afternoon and evening, it's melted. You're going to be post-holing. So there are times probably in the morning where you need spikes and an ice axe to get you through the early morning situations, and then the condition you might put your ice axe away because you're literally just post-holing all the time. But you adapt yourself to the conditions you're experiencing. But the idea that you can get through the Sierra safely and most advisedly on just spikes is utter nonsense until you actually experience a slide yourself. And I've experienced a couple, three in particular, where in my 40 years of doing this, I'm not an expert on snow and ice, but I've been on snow and ice for regular seasons over the last 30, 40 years, and I've had slides, and you soon realize that you're not in control. The nature is in control, and if you have a slide, all you can do is the best you can. It's usually muscle memory of self-arresting skills and basic self-belay skills, hopefully to maybe stop a slide even starting. Now, that is why, if you haven't had any snow skills or any snow skills training, watch some of the videos you can see online. They're good basic experience, basically suggesting different sort of approaches to the technique, and you will get different experts saying slightly different things. That whilst the general messaging on snow and ice skills is the same, there are some nuances that there's still some people have different views and preferences. Watch the videos. And also, when you first get to a patch of snow, obviously a gentle one, do a bit of practice, do some practice slides, certainly initially without your backpack on, get a feel for what the self-arrest technique is like in an easy way, and then maybe try it with your backpack on as well. It is something that can actually save your life, and you could be walking along quite normally on a relatively reasonably shallow slope, have a slide. And the question is, if you don't actually have a way of stopping it, those can accelerate quite quickly. So just keep that in mind. Right, once you've done the Sierra, it's basically you're on a roll. You've got everything sorted. You've got your gear dialed in. You've got your resupply strategy dialed in. You know what food you like. You've probably got a nice pace going. I'm not going to do videos on all the individual towns going up. There's a lovely selection of opportunities to come off trails, side trails, blue trails, or if you look at Far Out app. I've done over the last five seasons, I've done the 5 through hikes. I deliberately kind of mix it up a bit. I try and do different sections of the trail, or go to towns I've never been in before. And even after 5 times hiking the trail, there's still places I haven't been to that I'm still going to try and look to go to and experience as well. And also some side peaks I might do as well. So all I can say is wish you well. I think if this is your first through hike, my word of warning is it's very addictive. If you do get a niggle or a pain, maybe take a break and just heal up a little bit. Don't be afraid to take time off. Don't be afraid to take time out of the trail if the weather's really, really bad. Certainly early on. So for example, if you arrive at the start and it's pouring with rain, just because you're starting, you're geared up. Just if it's really crappy weather, you hunker down for a couple of days, even if it's at the start. It doesn't matter. You've got the whole season to get through, and hiking and drying out in the miserable weather is miserable. So you tend to avoid it. So anyway, I wish you well. I might see you on trail. I might see you around the early sections of the trail, because I'm actually training again on the anticipation that I'm hiking this year. And I wish you well. Have a great 2026.